Hello. We live in a fortunate age. Maybe you think I mean the modern age. Actually, I mean Buddhism has taken root in the West. Until recently, qualified teachers of Mahayana Buddhism outside of Asia have been few and far between. We've had to travel to the Far East to find deep teachings in the subjects of compassion, emptiness, karma, and enlightenment. Today, it's an amazing gift that we can learn about the ancient teachings of the Buddha through this 13-part video series. You will receive teachings from some of the greatest teachers, Tibetan and Western, men and women, living in the world today. You will hear personal interviews with Buddhist practitioners who share their experiences of putting the teachings into practice. You will have the opportunity to gain some understanding of Buddhism and learn skills that you can use to make your life most meaningful. Despite our achievements with science and technology, we still don't know much about the mind and its potential. Yet in fact, 2,500 years ago, Shakyamuni Buddha realized the full potential of the mind. He understood that the mind is not just the brain. The mind is beginningless, and it creates our experiences of the world. Because what we perceive as reality is a function of the mind, not only do we have the power to completely eliminate disturbing emotions like anger, but we can consciously progress to the highest evolutionary state possible, Buddhahood. Every living being has the potential to reach this limitless state of wisdom and compassion. Buddhism teaches us that as we begin to understand the true nature of our mind, we become happier, more peaceful, better able to deal with problems, which makes us better able to help others.
In this 13-part series of Discovering Buddhism videos, you are about to embark on the study of Mahayana Buddhism. Now, in the practice of Mahayana Buddhism, the concept of motivation is extremely important. For example, if someone were to give you a gift with an ulterior motive, say to receive something in return, then that wouldn't feel like such a positive action. But if someone gives you a gift just for the sheer pleasure of seeing the happiness on your face when you receive it, that feels like a very positive thing to do. In the same way, in our spiritual practice, motivation, the reason that we do an action, is just as important as the action that we do. Therefore, at the beginning of each of these teachings in this series, we are going to generate a positive motivation, a Mahayana motivation, that focuses not so much on our own well-being, but instead emphasizes generating the wish to be able to benefit other living beings and bring them happiness as much as possible. In Mind and Its Potential, the first in this series, we are going to explore the limitless potential of our own minds to bring happiness both to ourselves as well as to other living beings. And so for this reason, again, our motivation as we listen to these teachings is very important. So let's just take a moment right now to generate in our minds a strong thought, the thought wishing to be able to use these teachings in order to be able not only to bring happiness to ourselves, but also to be able to bring happiness and well-being to the others around us.
So, okay, mind. Generally speaking, in Buddhism, you can say it's synonymous with the word consciousness, number one. Number two, this mind of ours, in Buddhist terms, there's not one atom of physicality about it. It's not physical. It's interesting. In the Christian view, we talk about this part of you called the soul that isn't physical, isn't it? Then we have the materialist view, which is there is simply the brain, simply the DNA, the genes, and that's it. So these two views. Well, Buddhism is neither of these. Buddhism has the view that all of the mind, all of the mind, and what that word refers to is the entire spectrum of our inner experiences: intellect, thoughts, concepts, feelings, emotions, unconscious, subconscious, spirit, whatever you want to call, instinct, intuition, you name it. All of this is encompassed by the term mind in Buddhism, or consciousness, okay? The other point about this mind of ours, or about any part of our mind, which is where it again radically differs from all other religious views, is there's not one atom of our being that's created by a superior being, God, Buddha, whatever you like. Nothing, not possible. Buddha says it's just not on. It's just his view, from his own experience has discovered this to be the truth. And the other interesting point, which is where it differs radically again from all the Western psychological views, is there's not one atom of our mind, our personality, our thoughts, our feelings, our emotions, that's created by mum and dad. I mean, big surprise. We have to stop blaming them, okay? There's no part of our mind that comes from our mother and father. Clearly the body does. Thank you, mother and father. They provide us with an egg and sperm, which is the basis of this body. How fortunate we are. So, in Buddhist terms, your mind isn't physical. Doesn't come from mum and dad, doesn't come from God or Buddha or any other superior being. Clearly it can't come from nothing. We all know that anything you point to in this universe has a continuity. This thing here comes from metal and plastic and goes back and back. This cup, the same. The flowers, everything has a continuity. Suddenly there's one moment nothing and then one moment a flower. We all know that's absurd. So clearly with the mind it's not possible. Same thing. So mind or consciousness, not physical. Comes from previous moments of itself. It's like a river of mental moments. Mental continuum, they call it, This whole idea of mind being beginningless. Because if you follow this concept through now, intellectually, conceptually, you can't find any conclusion other than the fact that the mind has to be beginningless. Because this process of cause and effect, chicken and egg. How can you have a first chicken? Okay, Christians and Muslims and all the most religions point to God as the source. Where do I come from? From God. Buddha says no. You come from previous moments of your own consciousness. So if you trace it back and you think, well, maybe it began 32 years ago. Maybe it began 52 lives ago. Any given moment you say maybe it began then. You have to say there was a moment of mind existing. So if it existed then, it has to have come from a previous moment, doesn't it? Conclusion, your consciousness is beginningless. This is the Buddhist idea. Okay, the other point that's so crucial is this idea of Buddha nature. What does this mean, Because the big question, we all have these questions. We say, who am I, What is my purpose? Why am I here? Okay, Buddha says the answer to those questions is to be a Buddha. What's Buddha? Buddha is Sanskrit. It means fully awake. And actually, all it's referring to is the fully developed consciousness, mind, beyond which it can't be developed further. What Buddha means is a mind, a being, a consciousness that's fully developed in all, simply speaking, in all what we call the positive qualities, and absolutely free of the negative ones. So simple. There's a simple way of saying. And what Buddha is saying is that is who we really are. We all possess, the term they use is we all possess Buddha nature. Well, the simple way of saying this is this, that it's like, let's use the analogy of an acorn. Mummy, what's that, Oh, well, darling, that's an acorn. What's an acorn, Mummy? Well, then she points to the oak tree. Well, that will become that. Oh, how interesting, So then when you mightn't say, what's the nature of an acorn? You might just say, what is it? When you see an acorn, what you're really seeing is a potential oak tree, isn't it? You're not it's a cute little brown thing. Sure, you could use it for this and that, and you could use it for jewelry, you could use it as a weapon if you like, but kind of how dumb. What it really is, isn't it? You see, what its true nature is, we don't use those words, but you listen to it. What it really is a potential oak tree. So how foolish not to develop into an oak tree. How ridiculous, isn't it? Well, that's what Buddha's saying. Mind, consciousness, which is indestructible, which is not created, its true nature, what it really is a potential Buddha, a fully developed mind. It's not as if we have a choice about it. You have an option. It's not as if some people like Mother Teresa are born to be Buddhas, kind of like potluck. Not like that. No, by definition, an acorn is something that if you give it all the appropriate conditions, will become an oak tree. It's not as if you can turn it into an apple tree if you want to. How stupid. So this is the attitude we have to slowly develop about ourselves. What's kind of interesting now is, because we don't really know who we really are, Buddha says, we identify with this little kind of brown, undeveloped thing. Well, I'm this, I'm that, I'm lazy, I'm fat, I'm human, I'm female, I'm no good, I'm special, I'm delicious, I'm ugly, I'm beautiful, you name it. We're kind of defining ourselves by this little brown thing. How boring, how stupid, how short tunnel vision, A Buddha, which is your true nature, which is what your oak tree is, when you're fully developed, you'll have the fully developed two wings. Infinite empathy with all living beings, beyond which, totally developed, beyond which you can't develop it further. And this empathy would be such that as if they were all you. There's no separation. Huge empathy, huge wish, spontaneous wish to benefit each one perfectly. Second, you'd have fully developed wisdom wing, which literally in Buddhist terms is called omniscience. My mum thought this was very arrogant. Only God is omniscient. But Buddha says, every living being, if you possess mind, your mind has the potential to know everything. So this is just something totally natural, Buddha says, that our mind has the capacity to literally know everything. And when we have fully removed all the pollution from the mind, all the delusions, then our mind will be in sync with reality, quite literally. Buddha says we're way out of sync with reality right now because of all the pollution in the mind. So we'll be fully developed, we'll be omniscient. Omniscient, infinite compassion, and there's a third quality, not a wing, that's called literally, if you like, omnipotence. The effortless power to do whatever needs to be done to benefit each one of these countless living beings in the entire universe, to benefit them perfectly based on the wisdom that sees their minds perfectly and knows precisely what to do and how to benefit them. And that would include, in fact, the capacity to manifest your own mind, your Buddha mind, in millions of forms throughout millions of universes for millions of eons as long as suffering sentient beings exist. That's a Buddha, okay? That's enlightenment. Enlightenment isn't just some kind of nice feeling, okay? It's a little bit more than that. This is enlightenment. And Buddha says that's your true nature. That's who you can become. That simply is naturally who you really are. You're not it yet, but this whole idea of once you really appreciate what an acorn really is, you will treat it with such respect. And this is the attitude we have to develop about ourselves. It's hugely inspiring, actually, which is why it's so important to hear this very first.
So anyway, whatever our reason, we meet the Buddha Dharma, and in meeting the Buddha Dharma, we start to discover more and more that the source of our suffering comes from our mind. There are external conditions for our suffering, definitely. There are many, many external conditions for our suffering to arise. But the root cause of our suffering, the Buddha taught, lies within our own mind. And in fact, even meeting the external conditions is something to do with our mind. So the more we understand that our own mind is the source of our suffering, and also, fortunately, our own mind is the source of our happiness, then we begin to understand that the only way to be free of suffering is to change our mind, and to change it radically. If we change it a little bit, we will overcome a little bit of suffering. But if we radically change our mind, bring about a real revolution in our mind, and eliminate the disturbing thoughts from our mind and develop all the positive qualities of our mind, then we can be completely free of suffering and develop real happiness. Because again, the happiness that we're seeking is not something temporary, superficial. We may never have thought about what happiness we're seeking, but if we check up, we want a happiness that is perfect and lasting. Buddhism says that there is this amazing phenomena called mind, which is not the brain, it is not something physical, it is something formless, not having any qualities of physical matter. The mind is something which is clear, formless, and has the ability to know. In fact, mind is the only thing that knows, experiences, and feels. Mind's job is to know. In every way, the word know, we can analyze this word and discover that there are many ways to know. Right now, we ourselves know in quite indirect and superficial ways, mostly through concepts, mostly through reading, being told things by others. So right now, we are knowing in a very limited way. This is because our mind is being prevented from knowing perfectly, completely by the disturbing thoughts that all of us have. So we can imagine what it would be like without these disturbing thoughts. None of them whatsoever. There was nothing disturbing the innate ability of our mind to know and experience and feel. Yeah. I think this would be an amazing experience. Something truly amazing. Without these distractions, all this confusion in the mind, then the mind could just know. But is it possible to get rid of these disturbing thoughts? So this is also a very big question. This is what the whole Buddha Dharma is about. But also, maybe we can get some feeling that it is possible, because also, when we meditate, or try to meditate, if by placing our mind on an object, such as the breath, although we're not able to keep our mind on the breath for a long time, perfectly, totally experience 100% the breath, become union oneness with the breath, still, by putting some effort in doing that, what happens? We all experience, if we try and do it for some time, that our disturbing thoughts, the agitation in our mind, does reduce. Yes? Hopefully we've all had that experience at least one time, and at least for a short time, that the disturbing thoughts, they don't go away completely, but at least they decline. This is actually an indication that these disturbing thoughts have no power from their own side to control the mind. And that, maybe I can do my great demonstration. Sorry. Normally, center directors don't like this demonstration because I destroy but normally our mind is like that. That is our mind, completely shaken, disturbed. But if I stop shaking this water, which will make the director very happy, then what happens? The water returns to its natural state. It isn't natural for water to be agitated. Something else is doing that. And when you stop the agitation, the water just naturally, without any other factors involved, goes back to its natural state. It returns to being level, still, and then it also has the ability, when it's calm and clear, it has the ability to reflect things. When it's completely agitated, the surface of the water has no ability to reflect things accurately. We can also notice that when we do even a little simple breathing meditation, our mind starts to become calmer and clearer, more still, because that's its natural state. We've never experienced this natural state, but that is its natural state, and it always has the tendency to return to it. Think about it.
Understanding the true nature of the mind has helped me gradually over a period of, I'd say, about 3 years of just sort of letting that filter down. It doesn't happen suddenly. It didn't happen suddenly. It happened very gradually. Let's say I wake up, recently and think, wow, I'm a different person. I have more self-confidence. And because you start to realize that you're not this limited, hopeless, helpless being who's under the influence of all these things outside and all these things inside that cause so much suffering. When people come up to me and ask me about being a Buddhist nun and about Buddhism, many people have this, they've already decided that Buddhism is this dark, gloomy, pessimistic, nihilistic religion that talks about suffering and death. And that's, we do talk about suffering and death a lot, but we talk about it in a way where we're looking at the situation that we're in. And this is really the situation we're in. We're suffering and we have to die. And but there's a solution to it. That's what everybody seems to forget, that part. There's a solution, and the solution is that we have this pure potential of our mind that's unbelievable, that we can become these incredible beings, these Buddhas, what they call Buddhas. You can call it whatever you want, but it's this potential to become beyond whatever your imagination can come up with, a powerful, all-knowing, blissful being who can help everyone. I always wanted to help people. Since I was a little girl, I recognized that people were suffering. My parents were suffering, my grandparents, everyone. I recognized their suffering. I recognized my own suffering. But as I grew up and became an adult, my own suffering overwhelmed me so much that I didn't feel like I could help other people. I couldn't even help myself. And gradually through this understanding, and some little bit of taste, experience, that I do have this incredible nature. More and more, I seem to be helping more and more people, and thinking less and less about my own suffering.